Welcome to the Midweek Report. I'm Sami Mamou, just a fan, and I'm here with Paul Kuharsky. We're giving this a try here. Gonna add a little bit of content to the show, talk about what's going on with the Titans. Kind of, by Wednesdays, we've had a chance to hear from the coaches a couple times after the week. We got our first injury report, kind of know a bit what's going on. Um, can't talk Titans today or anytime recently without talking Brian Callahan. So obviously, extremely rough start to the season for him. Over aggressive in week one, very passive, I should say, not even passive aggressive, just passive at the end of halves in weeks 2 and 3. Um, Now has the worst coaching record in the NFL. Appears to be kind of losing it with the media, in my opinion, from watching the press conferences and reading the tweets from reporters, including yourself out there. Um, what where are we at, Paul? What's going on with all this?
Yeah, well, that's a mess. It's a sinking ship. Seems like there's a clock on Callahan. It's just a matter of when. Maybe the change in play caller now to Bo Hardigree gives them sort of some sort of boost and some sort of energy, and slows the sink to some degree. Houston's not very good. Titans aren't very good. 2-0-3 teams. Got to say they have a chance going down there. We'll see if they can sustain anything, but they haven't been able to sustain anything. And then the Brownlee trade. I don't know how guys are going to react to that. They can't be worried about who's not there. Have to worry about themselves. But Jeff Simmons said, big money guys, not big money guys, but the best guys have to play their best, and we need to see that. And starts Sunday. I mean, they can't undo what's happened so far. They can do a little bit better to get themselves closer to floating.
Did Callahan miss an opportunity today to be like, Jarvis, good young player, talented, whatever, but just wasn't getting what we needed him to get, or wasn't doing what we needed him to do, and ultimately, decided to pay the way for more snaps for some of these other guys and get what we could for him, or something along those lines, aside from saying it had nothing to do with the player.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to say the trade has nothing to do with the player. So, so you're going to trade other guys along the way here, and it has nothing to do with the player. And then other people were coming back at me when I said, it was an all-time bad moment at the podium for Titans brass, saying, well, they're not going to throw the kid under the bus. Well, there's a long way between not throwing the kid under the bus and saying the trade has nothing to do with the player, which is just asinine. So yeah, I mean, say something along the lines of what you're saying, like, hey, it was turning out not to be a fit for us, and we wanted to give him a chance to go somewhere where he'd be a fit, and to give some other guys who might be a better fit opportunity here. And we feel like in Jalen Armour Davis, in Marcus Harris, in Daryl Baker, that maybe we have some of those guys, and so that's the direction we're heading. That's not some huge slight of Brownlee on his way out the door, and it's not saying something that completely makes no sense. Now, I do think it would have been better to hear from Chad Brinker or Mike Borgonzi. Mike Borgonzi's the one who should have said something. I think they're probably thinking, this is not some huge trade of some huge personality, but given that they've preached, draft and develop, and they've given up now on a fifth rounder who was a starting player for them, and at least for a stretch was sold as a feisty guy who gave them a little bit of their identity, they could have done far better to explain themselves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it goes to, another thing I've noticed where you seem to feel it. Callahan exudes all this confidence and charisma and all this stuff in the off season, but once the losses start to pile up, it feels like he's got no confidence in himself, both on the field and in the press conferences, where he just doesn't have good answers to things. And I go back to the end of half sequence this week, right, where we go back and forth. We hear from Fossil today that apparently he's never encountered the issue that he's that they had with the K ball before in his career. But it's still, to me, it's like, why are you even getting to that point where you're in that position to have an issue where you're that
Yep.
late? And I don't know if there's too many voices in his ear or who he's listening to, but he's got to sort himself out. And I'm hoping that handing off these play calling duties allow him to focus on the things that the head coach needs to be focused on, and we can see improvements in multiple departments starting this Sunday.
They may have gotten screwed with the K ball, but and I'm joking when I say, the officials are also stunned at how long it took them to make a decision. They've got to be at the ready. But I mean, I think at that point, after two timeouts, when you're coming back on the field, you got to have your offense or your special teams coming on the field, and which ball you need should be clear at that stage. Now they've got the right, and there's probably some cutoff on the clock at which point you can't make a change. The Titans shouldn't be testing the bounds of what that is in those circumstances. So did they probably get screwed there? Yeah. But are they putting themselves in position to get screwed there by being that incredibly indecisive? Um, Absolutely. I think it's a mistake to presume that they're going to get some kind of dramatic boost. I think they can play better. I mean, certainly they can play better. Certainly they're better than they've been, even though they're not good. But I think it's hard to count on anything until you see something. I'm not going to believe until I'm St. Thomas here. I'm not going to believe until I see for myself. And Titans have some strengths. I'd say their safety group is one of their strengths, and their safety group was garbage against the Colts and couldn't tackle Jonathan Taylor. So you can't count on a strength in that situation. Well, you're not counting on a strength in this game. You're fearing a weakness. So Dan Moore and whoever's playing right tackle against Hunter and against Anderson are going to be in problem situations. And the Titans, they don't have good enough rushers, I think, to expose the Texans' weakness, their own weakness on the offensive line. And so if you're matching up those weaknesses and strengths, you give the Texans a check mark there, and something's going to have to happen for the Titans to come out on the better side of that. But you're thinking that I would think that Ward will face pressure from those two great edge rushers. Dan Moore's not good against good edge rushers, and Ojukwu and Udo that we know aren't good. There's no indication that Latham's going to
Nope.
be back, and so they're in trouble right out of the gate.
Any concern? So, I mean, that means Latham, they didn't put him on IR when he got hurt, but now he's not even close, and we're looking at 3 weeks. Any idea what's going on with him?
No, but I think people make too big a deal out of the IR thing. Like you're putting what 6-7 guys down on a Sunday until you're using up all those spots. Even if he's out more than 4 games, it's not like you've wasted some spot. You're going to deactivate somebody anyway. So that it's not a big deal to not put him on IR unless he's out for some significant stretch of time. And even if he is, you could put somebody else that's hurt for 4 weeks on IR. So I'm not optimistic about him because it seems like it's the kind of injury that's going to linger and be an issue. But they haven't offered any updates, and he was nowhere to be seen in terms of returning to action on Wednesday.
That's a decent transition over to topic number 2 for us today. Cam Ward. He popped up on the injury report with a calf injury, but I did see he spoke. Any concern there? More of a maintenance thing or an actual ding?
No, I think it covered. So I think it's an ankle calf. So he suffered something in the game that led to some degree of limitation for the first day of the practice week. You're surprised to see him on there. We don't get that practice report, injury report, until well after we speak to him and to an open locker room. So it's kind of makes for awkwardness. You could cross off the guys who don't appear out there. So the 3 guys that weren't out there today, Latham, Sweat, Winston, I think, no surprises there, but nobody else. So you don't know about guys who are limited until the report comes out, more like 3 o'clock, and um, they're off the field, and the locker room's open and closed before that comes out. So you don't have a chance to ask Cam a question about that. Tomorrow, we'll have assistant coaches. I don't know if Hardigree will talk or Holtz, given the developments of the week. But they're not given much room to discuss something like that. So we really probably won't get any information on Cam until we talk to Callahan again on Friday. And, he could be a full participant in practice tomorrow and turn it into a non-issue. There's no reason to expect it's going to have a bearing on his playing status. I would completely expect he's going to play.
Okay. All right. That's good to hear. As far as on the field, it kind of continues to be more of the same, right? A mixed bag. He shows flashes. He continues to hold on to the ball just too long. He's taken a league high 15 sacks, which on average occur 4.5 seconds after the snap. And you tweeted out a next gen stats, I think it was, graph after the game. And every single pass attempt, except for one, appeared to be within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I was just, it got me thinking, why does it appear that there is a cap? We don't see many deep throws. We don't see many deep shots through 3 games. Is that a concern on the offense? Is it Ward not seeing the ball? Because he is holding the ball. Is he not seeing the field, excuse me? Or what's behind that, you think?
If he's holding the ball that long, like to what end? It's a good question. They haven't really. They're not an explosive playmaking team. They don't have explosive playmakers. Julius Chestnut had a long run of 27 yards, I think, last week. Tony Pollard can't top 11 through 3 games, which is a concern. Calvin Ridley's their down the field playmaker, and he's having trouble catching the ball. People are breaking up throws on him. He's not fielding the ball cleanly. I took video of almost every snap he had during the open period during practice on Wednesday. He had a drop in that, that's uncovered stuff. I did miss him in the locker room. I know he did talk to a couple of guys who kind of lucked into him late. But I think the gist of it was, can only talk so much about it and need to do it. And I do think, it warrants looking at the numbers. He was awful early last year. I mean, his catch percentage was way down. It was a good share of Levis also. So it was a Levis Ridley problem last year. It's a Ridley problem this year. I think Cam's been pretty on point with him. But going back to Simmons, you need your best players to play their best, and Calvin Ridley, the salary sheet says he's one of your best players. He had 1,000-yard season last year, which for Titans receivers is a significant deal. And he's not playing anything like that right now, which is a massive disappointment. And, I feel compelled to chime in here. I mean, Io Manor is doing a nice job, but some Titans fans are just completely hypnotized here. I put out a list after they trade Brownlee of, once again, their need list for next year already is, and I remember writing after this thing, like, this can be the last year, 2025 can be the last year now on this, where the list of needs is like more than you can do in a year. And it's not. Already the 2026 need list is more than you can do in a year. They need a dominant edge. They need a dominant wide receiver 1. They need a running back. They're going to need 2 cornerbacks with Brownlee gone, and I don't think they're going back to Snead next year. And that's just the top 5. I mean, they need another tight end. They need plenty. They need another edge. That's a lot right there. And some people are saying, no, Io Manor's a wide receiver number 1. I think that comes from being hypnotized. You just are so close to this team so long that they've got you right where they want you. And you don't understand what a wide receiver 1 is anymore. Io Manor looks like a nice player, and to have him as your second or third receiver would be fantastic. But I'm talking about a game, like look around the league
AJ
at
Brown, Jamar
game
Chase.
breaking wide receivers, the people that you draft in the first 12 picks of your fantasy draft. One of those. That's not Isle Manor. He's not going to be that. He can be a very nice, good player and a big win for the Titans to have selected in the 4th round. It's not an insult that he won't be a wide receiver number 1 out of that. But if Ridley's not it, Isle Manor certainly isn't going to be it. They need to go get somebody like, look at Egbuka from Tampa Bay. That's what they need.
I agree. Titans fan, we struggle because we've never had receivers really, but we should be looking at Io Manor, in my opinion, as a better version of Tajay Sharp, not
A better
AJ's
version of
replacement,
Nick
right?
Westbrook
Like
Akine.
exactly, like a nice depth piece, a solid starter, but he's not a difference maker. And Ridley, while you were hoping, he's never really been a true number 1, but you expected him to be good.
Yeah.
And what we've seen so far has been such a huge disappointment. I mean, the impact on so many drives and so many plays from the drops that he's had have just been backbreakers. And to me, it goes to something a little deeper where it's like, Ridley's got a C on his chest. Simmons has a C on his chest. Like, these guys with C's to a certain degree have to be the ones, Hooker also, right?
No, Barton.
Oh, Barton.
Defense.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Barton. But it's like, at some point, those have to be the guys that pick the rest up and say, no, I'm gonna do it, or we're gonna do it, and find a way to snap them out of a funk right now. And it doesn't feel like any of them are close to that, which is
Simmons
disappointing.
has been, I have to say, Simmons has played very well. And, I'm not big on his leadership style, but I think he has adjusted somewhat and been better overall across the board. He's played better. He's been a better spokesman. He's done better across the board. Now, I think, and his motivation shouldn't matter, but he's on the verge of seeking big money again, another guaranteed payday. He's under contract for an additional season, but he doesn't have any guaranteed money ahead. So I think he's trying to position himself for that, whether it's here or somewhere else, conceivably after a trade. But I do think he deserves some credit for trying to do the right things, and certainly first and foremost for playing well. And I think it's pretty hard not to say he's the best guy on the team right now.
I don't disagree. He may be having maybe his best season since his second year. Good transition into veteran trade chips. That window seems to have been opened with the Brownlee trade, even though he's not quite a veteran. But Simmons having great rush metrics. He's probably their best bet at someone that would bring a legitimately good return. What do you think he could bring in a trade? Do you think it's likely
Froze up there. I don't.
season?
He froze up there. I don't think Simmons is going to bring a 1. And you'd like for him to bring multiple picks, but if he brings multiple picks, they're going to be lower. I think maybe you can get a 2. I think it comes later in the season if you decide to do it. Because first off, teams aren't so clear on what they need yet and who they are yet. And secondly, you're picking up, pretty good contract. You pick up a much smaller chunk of it the later you wait into the season. So I wouldn't expect trades for the Titans' bigger names and bigger contracts to come until later. Calvin Ridley, my guy, my scout, Blake Bedingfield, is pushing for him to get dealt as soon as possible. Well, I don't think his value bounces back until he starts catching some balls. So I think it's hard to get anything, close to what you could get for him until he shows that he's back. But I think he's kind of damaged goods from the way he's played and from his gambling stuff in the past and from reputation now of kind of being very up and down in 3 different spots. Snead, maybe could go help somebody like the Eagles who would take a chance on it. But
What would you think that
Titans could
those two
stockpile some
guys?
picks, but you got to have somebody to play also.
What do you think those two guys would or could bring back if they have, say they put together 2, 3 solid games in a row?
Snead
What
and
what do you?
Ridley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I'm bad at projecting this, but I would think you're talking fourths, fifths. Maybe that with a chance to uh, get a little bit better. I don't think anything that would wind up higher than a fourth.
Do you see any other vets you think could get moved? Maybe someone like Chig or Woods or Zeitler? Because Zeitler's hurt.
Zeitler's a 1 year deal. I don't know. Maybe if somebody loses a guard, I don't know that Chig. Maybe I'd say maybe on everybody, but I don't think there'd be. I don't think they're trading 5 guys. Again, you need some people to play, and not as many people are going to be interested in one of the worst rosters in the league as Titans fans tend to think. But who knows? It's hard to tell. Hard to tell how aggressively they'll shop. Hard to tell what prices they'll take. Hard to tell how willing they are to further bottom out.
I mean, how much further down can we go to bottom out?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that with the Brownlee deal, right? I mean, um, you know, you're willing, it seems, to make a culture move there that takes you further down and doesn't get you much in return. At some point you gotta make a turn and start having plus people on the roster. I mean, just bodies. And evidently they're not there yet.
No, very unfortunate. That kind of takes me over to wanted to start kind of with a little bit of a youngster report, right? We're going into the fourth week, which was historically the quarter point of the season. Obviously, season's a little bit longer now, but looking at guys in their third year or less, Skaronski, the only one from the 2023 season that's either healthy or still on the team.
I think
I think he's had a
Skaronski's,
great
yeah, I
great
think
start.
he's really maturing and probably their best lineman. I think a good leader and spokesman, and I think somebody they can be pleased with. He's not going to be the Hall of Famer that you want from a guard that you choose that high, but I think he's a foundational piece for them. Levis, is a trade chip or a bad backup, badly timed surgery didn't help his value when he resurfaces. Spears, you hope, can come back off of IR and add some juice to the run game as an alternative to Pollard, and everything else is gone.
We've seen a few running backs get hurt. It just makes me think. I mean, I doubt Spears would have any value. Do you think Pollard would have any value if a team needs a running back near the deadline?
Maybe, but I don't know that you could give him up. I mean, I just don't think your guys behind him can
Carry
be
a load.
NFL runners.
Yeah, yeah. All right, 2024 youngsters. Latham, bad first game and then hurt since then. Obviously had the whole body transformation, but um and switch positions. I don't know. I don't know what to make of him.
Unknown now with the hip. I mean, he's got to get healthy. He's got to get out there, and we don't know anything about the timetable and how long this is going to take him. So right now, he's a gigantic question mark.
Same with Sweat, I guess, right? You can just
Sweat's a
copy
more
paste.
gigantic question mark. I mean, I thought when he missed this time in training camp that didn't bode well for him. And I'm not convinced that organizationally they're real excited about him anyway. But they need him out there. I mean, obviously their run defense is better with him there. They feel like the edge stuff, these big edges are helping contain the run and maybe force it inside. And so if their inside defense was better, maybe we'll see him start to slow the run down when he's back.
That takes us to Cedric Gray. It didn't get talked about a lot, I think, because there were so many other things to talk about coming out of the Indy game, but Kaiser White played a good amount of snaps. I noticed him a few times. And Williams, who will talk, who's, we can include in this conversation. I didn't see him much outside of special teams. Gray took the
No,
starting job,
Williams
but
was scratched in this game, so they played White over Williams. Gray's fine; he is what he is, but he's not going to be. Well, he's a replaceable part. I think Williams. Indications are that they're not real high on Williams. He's 7th-round pick. Had his chance. He can have some moments, but I don't think they're married to him by any means with their willingness to give him to scratch him in week 3. And then Harold, is a bit player on the edge who hasn't flashed at all.
Rand Carthon's first 2 drafts are looking a lot like J Rob's last 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a couple pieces there, but it's not substantial what he left behind.
Then that brings us to this regime's group. We talked about Ward. Oladejo has been so Oladejo
Yeah,
has been so disappointing, really, for me. It just seems like he's eating up snaps, but not really doing anything.
invisible, and certainly invisible when it comes to rushing the passer. I mean, they touched Daniel Jones twice. I just he's a developmental guy. You got to at a huge position of need. You spent your 2nd-round pick, even with the trade back. It's a 2nd-round pick, and he's a developmental guy.
Yeah. And then Winston, any idea when we'll get to see him play football?
I don't think it's going to be too much longer. And I think he'll prove to be a good pick in the long run. But again, not
Have you
helping
seen
him,
him on the
not helping
practice
him right
field
now.
much? Is
No.
he practicing at all?
I think he was DNP today. So no.
Okay. DK, is it safe to say only 3 games in, best returner since Pac-Man?
I don't know. Khalif Raymond had some good and big moments, I think. But I mean, it's a new game now with the kick return deal. And so I think you have to frame it differently. He's doing very good work in that. And I think has some opportunity to do some things out of the slot and out of the backfield. Um, you know, I'd rate him maybe 3rd out of the 3, 4th round guys in terms of who I want touching the ball first, but I certainly like him.
Speaking of Helm, do you see him continuing to grow in snaps, or what's the shakeout with him and Chig? Do you think it'll stay mostly kind of what it is, or how do you see that developing?
I think it'd probably stay mostly what it is. I wouldn't mind seeing some more too tight. Neither of them are great blockers is the thing. Helm needs to develop more there. Chig, willing, but not always able. So you'd like to get more out of that, but there's a lot you can do out of that too tight. There's a lot of teams doing a lot out of that too tight. I know Titans fans are used to it as the default. And you need help for that right tackle anyway. So, it would be better if we could see more. And if Helm could grow as a blocker, I'd like to, I think everybody wants to see him throw to him some more. But you're going to have to start taking targets away from somebody else.
And maybe start with Ridley. Io Manor, we've talked about, obviously he's a starter from week 1, looking good, hugely successful for a 4th-round pick. Slater, any reason to be surprised or worried that Hands got the start over Slater at right guard with Zeitler out, or is he just working
No,
along in the background?
I think Slater is a next year guy. He got buried on the blocked field goal, which wasn't a great moment for him. But I think he's a 2026 guy. I thought Hance did reasonably well for himself. And I think you go to Marcus Harris here, you go to Kalel Mullings, project guys. Harris isn't being mentioned as high as Daryl Baker or Jalen Armour Davis with the Brownlee trade. So he's maybe 3rd in line there, but they like that 3-pack as depth, and as the alternatives now to Brownlee.
Is
Mullings,
Womack in the mix at all there?
haven't heard his name mentioned hardly at all.
Okay.
So it seems like not. And Mullings, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a couple short yardage carries, but I wouldn't trust him to pass protect at all at this stage.
No, a lot of rookie running backs looking bad in that regard this year across the league. All right, Paul. Inaugural episode in the books. What's coming up for you at PK.com this week?
I think I'm going to follow up on what Jeff Simmons had to say about the best players need to play the best. We'll probably look at cash versus production. Mike Herndon coming up tomorrow, and Paul Kuharsky podcast on Friday, live from Ridley's, plus Braden Gall, becoming more and more valuable file already, looking at the Titans from a draft perspective.
I'm all in on Bain.
Yeah, and he's written a lot about him already. So give us your thoughts on the midweek report. We'll see if we circle back to it. My thanks to Sammy for kind of dreaming it up and putting it together. And one way or another, we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Sammy. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Cheers. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Also, probably don't do 65, 66 and a 45 like I did this morning. See ya.